Welcome to Mortgage on My Mind, where we take the mystery out of mortgages and make dreams of home ownership a reality. I'm Natalie Salins, a top 1% mortgage broker with 20 years of experience, based right here in sunny Los Angeles. If you've ever wondered about pre-approvals, appraisals, or what loan product is right for you, don't worry, I've got Mortgage on My Mind, so you don't have to. Each week, I'll bring you expert advice, real-life stories, and insider tips to help you navigate California's competitive real estate market with confidence. Whether you're buying your first home, refinancing, or just curious about how it all works, this podcast is for you. So let's talk mortgages, demystify the process, and make your real estate goals a reality. Ready to get started? Let's dive in. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Mortgage on My Mind. This is Natalie Salins. Today, we have our guest, Nick Mathis, Nick Mathis. He is a senior mortgage consultant with FirstBank Home Loans, serving Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex.
Right.
Active in the industry since 2005, and that's like when I got in as well. He leverages his background in processing leadership to engineer creative solutions for complex loan files. He prioritizes transparency, timely communication, and client education to guide buyers through a seamless home financing process, which sounds so similar to me. Welcome, Nick. Thank you for being on.
Yeah, that's the good loan officer playbook that you just read off right there. So
A little bit, right? None of that was AI. None of that was like, great.
That's the real deal.
That's the real thing. When people ask me what
Yep.
makes me different, I'm like, well, communication and timeliness and all of that
Right.
stuff.
All the stuff we should do, and I feel like so many lenders claim that they do, but very few, I think, actually do that consistently. I think some will do it here and there, right? But it's a consistency, I think, is a huge part of it.
Totally, 100%. Yeah, it's a tough thing to keep up. You have to have a really strong skin to be able to do that, but it's a standard that I couldn't do the business without it. I just wouldn't be able to be a different type of loan officer.
I like that.
So before we popped on, we were chatting about relocation, what that means and how real that is right now for our buyers and why they're leaving the state of California or why they're leaving where you are in Texas, what this trend is with now after the post-COVID world of people being able to truly work remotely, being able to live anywhere and where that is for them. What are the prompts for that? So yes, tell us a little bit about your thoughts on why you said everyone is going to Texas.
It's a wild thing. And honestly, it's so interesting what you said about the remote work environment has changed everything. I don't know about you. It changed my life in 2020 when I got to go when my company said, hey, here's a laptop, go home, we'll call you when it's time to come back and don't lose any loans, right? And it was like, okay. And I joked that during COVID when it was, interest rates were fantastic. And I mean, this was
Thank God.
Pretty easy job, right? Just to answer the phone, right?
Yeah. I mean, I used to say like during COVID, like, I don't have time to get dressed in the morning.
Yes.
That's how busy we were. Like, thank God I can just roll out of bed and start working.
Yep.
Because there wasn't even time for me to go to the bathroom back then. Like it was a constant.
I would have missed my son's almost entire senior year, my middle son's almost entire senior year, if I was having the type of busyness that we had during COVID. If I had to go to the office, I would have missed everything. And I did for probably almost 15 years. I missed a ton of stuff because I was that in-office guy, right? And so I thought you had to be there. I was a VP for a pretty big mortgage company, and it was like, even when my employees would earn the right, I was so apprehensive about it. And just because I just felt like, how do you produce from home? How do you stay on task? How do you do all this stuff? And COVID taught us all how wrong we were about that, I feel like.
It's true.
But yeah, so that I think what you hit on that when the opportunity came where we were not, or where, consumers were not tied down to their desk in a specific location, it really gave a neat opportunity for people to branch out. And I was born and raised in California. I mean, I lived in California from 1977 until 2006, and so for me, I never dreamed of leaving Southern California. I mean, it just didn't make sense to me. There's so many, I mean, the fact that people in other states can't, and I try to explain this sometimes to people in Texas, and if they're moving from California to Texas, like, y'all, I need you to remember that we don't have mountains here. We don't have, and I mean, you can call the Gulf of America an ocean, but it's barely an ocean. And yeah, there are all these interesting things that it's so like, I love it here, but just the flight from just anything, just, hey, I just want something new, I think was a big part of it. And then when you told people like, hey, you could afford to buy a house here or there, and I mean, I think it kind of started Arizona to Nevada, jumped over New Mexico and went straight to Texas. It kind of seemed like we saw that a lot. And the, the thing with California's home prices were high. They're above average. It's not just California though. I mean, you go both coasts, right? East and West Coast. It's all expensive.
Oh, certainly. Yeah. And I have friends in the loan business that just like moved 3 hours to Nevada.
Right.
And we're like, I just got myself a 10% raise because of taxes. And I was like, but you live in Nevada.
That's a fair point.
You know what I mean? Like, you do pay 10% more in taxes from living here, but you get to live here where the weather is insane and you live next to an ocean, next to mountains. And that's kind of why you pay more, because it's beautiful.
100% is. And I think too that like also we have to remember when we're talking about income tax, with it, in any state that has a state income tax, you still get to file taxes and like write stuff off. It's not just a straight up, here's your haircut on your income. And there is another side to that where, like California property taxes are relatively inexpensive compared to, they don't change every single, generally they don't change every single year. You have certain things that you can have. I mean, not in a big way, depending on what county you live. I live in Denton County, and if they get a wild hair and decide that they're going to pop your value, $50,000 from one year to the next, and you can fight it, but it's a pretty losing battle when you really get into it with them. And all of a sudden, your property tax bill goes up $1,000. Right. There's no recourse for that. You don't get to go backwards on it. So I really hope that when they do move here, they're looking at a little bit more than just what is this cost, this certain house in Orange County, what's it going to cost me? And what is the comparable house in Texas cost me? Right. And $1 million house in Orange County, maybe $400,000 here. It also may be $1 million here, depending on the neighborhood.
Dallas and Fort Worth and everything like that. Sure.
Exactly. It's not super cheap. Like I live in what is considered a pretty nice area, but still, like my house in an equally nice area of Southern California is probably 3 times the price. Right. So like that is a big mover, but honestly, the property taxes on that are probably still less than what I would be paying, on that. So there's pros and cons.
But you also earn less, right? So if you've located there and now your, field or your market is there, now the prices of homes are lower. Now your income is lower.
A lot of times that's a good example.
It's all relative.
Yep. And some, it obviously depends on what you do. But when we moved here, I remember just commenting that I thought it was crazy that like everybody was driving new cars, right? I mean, everybody was driving new cars. It was normal to do that. Whereas growing up in California, I feel like most kind of regular families, they may have like one new nice car and then they kind of had their older beater, right? And that was like how they managed their budget a little bit. Here, I remember coming out here, I transferred with Syntex Home Equity from the Riverside office. They moved me out here. Great life decision for us as a family. But I remember thinking like everybody in the parking lot had nicer cars than me. And like, I didn't have like a beater, I thought it was okay. I was like, oh man. And then it was really interesting though, that it's like people with like $1,000 car payments living in an apartment. And that concept, I could never like understand that. And so many loan officers that I worked with were not homeowners. They didn't know, right? They're just like, no, my rent's $600. So I can have this. I'm not like joking about this. A gal had a Maserati and she rented an apartment, right? You're just like, what are we doing?
We see that a lot here in LA, where you
I've
like
heard that a
have
lot
like
more.
waiters driving
Yes.
$700-800 cars per month, and
Yeah.
their rent is like
Insane.
$1,800, and they can't afford a mortgage. And you're like,
Yes.
well, we could
Yeah.
try to redistribute your debt per month, and that'll probably help, baby. Like, I'm
Yeah.
not sure what
Yeah.
is important to you and what isn't. You have right now a
Right.
depreciating asset,
Yeah.
or you could have an appreciating asset.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, I agree. I think that's just that's something that I think California kept people that live in California for a lot of years because of the housing costs. They've and this is my experience probably more 20 years ago, that we grew up understanding there was going to have to be a give and take. And there was a time in Texas where like you kind of could have it all. A nice house was a couple $100,000, right? So, you could, for example, and I mean, people are going to be sick when they hear this, but we sold our barely over 1,000 square foot house in Upland, California when we moved for $390,000, and it was 50 years old. Bought a brand new house here on a quarter of an acre that's 3,000 square feet for $225,000. Right. I mean, that was the big enticement back then, right? Was we could do that.
Sure.
And then I had the job moving, and had thankfully made some financial decisions that were pretty positive when I was young to buy that other house and be able to do that. And I think a lot of people have kind of like, they're missing that step a little bit now on that, like, entry level home, being okay with not getting everything all at once. I'd love to see people moving from other states and relocating, just being a little bit more budget conscious sometimes with those things, because stuff's going to come up. And I hate getting a call a year later where someone's like, man, we really need to refinance and get this payment down, and I'm like, guys, what are we going to do?
Rates aren't there. Yeah. It's interesting because as far as a loan standpoint for the listeners out there, to relocate to another state, of course, we have to confirm with your employer that you can work remotely, 100% remotely, because we're not going to you can't buy what you're selling if you're moving to another state and you can't work remotely, right? We're not going to allow that. Or we need to see that your business has relocated you and the terms are the same, or we just need to see a new contract that you're working in another state.
Right.
For somebody like you, who is really commission-based, or
100%.
a realtor, or somebody who's truly self-employed, anyone in entertainment, if they decide to pick up and move to, let's say, Georgia, because there's a lot of work in Georgia from LA. So that happens quite a bit, right? We're going to move to Georgia.
I've seen that.
We're going to move to Atlanta. There's a lot of film out there right now.
Yeah.
We can't qualify them for a year because we have to know that when you move to another state, you can actually earn the same income when it is self-employed, of course, because now it's like, well, what are you going to earn living in a different state? And what does that look like? We can't use past income because that's not where you're located anymore. That income earned in LA is no longer continuous. Unless it is, but we need to see that it's continuous. We need to, there are some ways to make it work if they were living in LA, but can show me proof they were working in Georgia.
Yep. Agreed.
And if I can get that proof, then we can probably go off that because it's continuous, but
I run into that a lot, that where someone that's moving here, especially if they're self-employed, and they're in their mind, and I understand this from a buyer's perspective, is why wouldn't I keep making the same amount of money? Why wouldn't I've been self-employed for X amount of years? Why wouldn't I? And I have to tell them, like, I understand that thinking, but when I'm talking to my investor or my underwriter, they're going to say, why would they? They're not going to assume that, hey, it's going to be, how can we prove within a reasonable doubt that they're actually going to continue doing this? And sometimes the only way to do that is time on the job, time in the new location. I mean, sometimes that's just how that goes.
Totally. Unless you work for an employer, again, that allows you to work remotely and you're guaranteed income.
Correct. Yeah,
that's easy. But if you are an online type of presence, then that will normally stay the same, because online in one state continues through the next state. But it's more like on the ground. So again, like a realtor, if a realtor is moving, they don't have a business in that new state.
Yes.
That they can prove at least. And if they do because of family or bliss or that, they need to prove that income in that new state. So there
Agreed.
is a lot of business that doesn't translate just because you want to move,
Right.
qualify you for moving, you know.
Yeah. Hey, I want them to move too. Yeah, I always tell them, hey guys, I'm not in the business of telling people no. I prefer
Totally,
to tell
yeah.
people yes, but I also am not going to tell you yes, have you move 1,700 miles, and then we get a no. That is. I mean, that would be the worst thing I could possibly do for somebody. So if I have to be the bad guy while you still live in California and with a little bit of a reality check or anywhere you're at. I'm doing a loan from somebody right now that's moving from Florida to Texas, right? He's an airline pilot. You would think, oh, no big deal. He's an airline pilot, but we needed an email from HR just saying, hey, he moved from this hub to the Dallas hub. And then we're good, which that's
exactly.
awesome.
Income to stay the same.
Way harder.
What'd you say? Which one?
I said that used to be way harder. COVID has allowed when people move, an email from HR is no problem. I mean, you remember back in the day, I was like, okay, we need a blood sample. Like we need all this stuff to prove that you're really moving here. Now, generally an email from a supervisor or HR and you're kind of ready to rock and roll, which is nice.
Totally. Or even a call, like a processor.
Right. Yeah. Verbal, a little verbal LOE. Yep.
Yeah.
I love
totally.
it.
Yeah. And when you were saying earlier that a lot of people are moving to Texas and want to, is that near you, or you like I saw during COVID, like a lot of people wanting to move to Austin?
Yes.
That was like
so
a big
Austin thing. I think Austin was the first area that saw the hit because it was kind of the most popular, right? Joe Rogan lives there. Matthew McConaughey lives there, right? These people, people know
it's
these
more
names.
Metropolitan, more urban. Yeah.
Austin's mantra is keep Austin weird. That's kind of their thing. So when you had a lot of people that
it's weird for Austin, Texas.
What's that? Weird for Texas. Right,
I would
correct.
consider it weird for Texas. It is certainly not weird. It's a little more diverse than the rest of Texas.
Exactly. So it felt a little more homey, I think, to people that were moving, especially from Southern California or the Bay Area, that when they moved to Austin, it was like, oh, okay, this is kind of a SoCal vibe. I felt the same way. When we visit there, I totally feel the same way about it. Dallas and Fort Worth were the next one because Austin got expensive really quick. And then there's so much tech up in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, and specifically on the Dallas side of what we call the Metroplex. And it's a crazy thing. If you ever visit here, Dallas and Fort Worth are so different. I mean, and they're 30 minutes apart, but Dallas is very much like a metropolitan city, just like anywhere else. Like when you're walking around downtown Dallas, you could be in LA, you could be anywhere, it feels the same. Fort Worth is much more what you think about when you think of Texas. Like when you watch all the World Cup stuff and they're talking and they're showing these guys at the stockyards and stuff, that's all on Fort Worth, on the Fort Worth side of town. But yeah, so there was so much tech here that you just had, a lot of jobs where you could come in. So if you had to go into work here and there, Toyota's here, Chase is here, State Farm's here, right? All these big groups. And it gave people, I think, a comfort of, well, hey, at least I'm close. If something changes, I have a lot of options. And so I think that was a big thing with Dallas. And then when the homes are more affordable, it was a make sense thing. That's what got us here. I remember my wife looking online and saw what we could get and was like, oh, we're moving, and if mama says we're moving, so that's what we did.
No question. Yeah. And how long ago was that?
Dude, that was actually 20 years ago this month. We moved out here in July of 2000. I moved out in July of 2006, flew back when our house sold, and moved the rest of the family out in September of 2006.
Oh, my God. And did you have that accent before you moved?
So I don't think I have an accent, but everybody, so I definitely did not. But it is funny that you say that. I have 3 brothers that all live in California still, and it never fails on a phone call that they will give me a hard time about it. And I think I initially picked it up.
You don't think you have one?
So I don't hear it, but anybody that I talk to from back home 100% says that I do. Yes.
You do, by the way. I'm just gonna give you that.
Yeah. No, I totally believe it. I don't hear it myself, but I do know I exchanged dude for y'all or you guys for y'all. That was a biggie. I was told when we moved here that you don't call, like out there was always, hey, what are you guys doing? Whether you were talking to, a man, a woman, whatever, it didn't really matter. And I was corrected quickly out here where it was like, no, it's y'all, because we don't call women guys. So we're not going to say, hey guys, we're going to say, hey y'all. And so it's, I mean, it cut out an S. That's fine. You know,
You have a draw.
I hear it sometimes when I hear myself back on stuff. I just don't notice it
Right.
when
I was
do
like,
it.
go back and listen to the podcast.
Yeah, no, I will. I most definitely will. I'm sure all my brothers will definitely give me a hard time about it when they listen to this.
Totally. I mean, maybe, you know.
Yeah, no, we will. We have two of our older sons were born in California, in Southern California, and then our youngest was born here. And there is definitely a difference with them as far as just how they talk a little bit that I get a bit of a kick out of.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for being on today. And
yeah, 20 minutes goes by quick.
Doesn't it go by quick? I know,
Yes,
I know.
It does.
I appreciate you being on and, you know, us chatting about relocating and working remotely and all the things that are very much real in our world right now.
I agree.
It's such an interesting, you know, even though we're saying goodbye, I have this file right now that clicked in my head that like I have a person who is buying in LA, but lives most of the time in Reno because that's where he works, buying a primary here.
Right.
And we are able to do that because his wife lives here and for all intents and purposes, his children will as well. So him living in Reno most of the time, you know, us just having to kind of gather information about these extra addresses that he has, right? But like understanding that his primary is here because he just works somewhere else.
That's where he wants to be. I think that's an easier sell for somebody in the Southern California area to say, hey, of course they want to live here, you know, compared to Reno. And like you just said, hey, you have to do a little extra documentation, you know, make the underwriter and the investor believe that it's reasonable. That's going to happen. And then you rock and roll with that. So
exactly.
Well,
all righty. Yes. Thank you so much. Thanks everybody for listening. Of course, join us for the next one. Talk to you soon.
Thanks, Natalie. All right. Bye now.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to Mortgage on My Mind. If you're ready to start your mortgage journey or have any questions, I'd love to help. With 20 years of experience, I make the process as simple and stress-free as possible. Check the show notes for my contact info and don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share this podcast. Until next time, I'm Natalie Salins, here to help make your real estate dreams a reality.